So what's often known as Siwash Rock is a place in our territory that has a story that's associated with it. And one of the things to understand is that our land was our classroom. When our ancestors were raising our children to be, contributing members of society, they would raise them with teachings and upbringing to understand how to be a good person, how to conduct themselves as a human being in our community, and what was the good thing to do and what was the bad thing to do, how to live the proper way, and all that kind of thing. And so the way that they did that was, our land is filled with history that would often be retold, orally from generation to generation, to be a physical marker, a physical place and point where these lessons could be associated with. So young children, when they're coming of age, when they're going through their education, the elders or the older members of the family would take them through the territory and teach them about all of the places in their territory where there was significant stories and history and lessons to be taught. And that was the way that we would help raise our community. And because it's a physical place, as you live here, as you operate in this environment, the land is constantly reminding you of how to be a person that is good in this world. The land is constantly there to remind you of these teachings. It's not something that's in a book. It's not something that's on a computer. It's not something you have to memorize. You're constantly being reminded of it.
I'm just noticing that it says something about it right on this rock here.
Yeah, so the plaque here says, Siwash Rock. Indian legend tells us that this 50-foot high pinnacle of rock stands as an imperishable monument to Skalsh the Unselfish, who was turned into stone by Quas, the Transformer, as a reward for his unselfishness. So it's got most of it correct.
Except for the Indian part.
Yeah, the Indian. So that's the interesting thing. Siwash is a word that comes to us through what was called the Chinook jargon. Chinook jargon was a trade language used from Alaska to Oregon. And it was a mixture, it was kind of a pidgin language jargon. It was a mixture of Salish words, Nuu-chah-nulth words, languages from the Columbia River primarily, as well as a little bit of French and English.
So you could trade with people.
Yeah, it was a really easy language to learn. You could learn it pretty quickly, and if you were a fur trader or what have you, you could pick it up within a few weeks and be able to trade with it.
Even white people.
Yeah, and a lot of English and French words were contributed to it because of that.
Gotcha.
So one of the French words that basically got changed because of pronunciation was that the French word sauvage got changed into Siwash, and the French word sauvage means savage. And so this was the word in Chinook that became known as the word for in native people. So Siwash was what, if you were talking about native people, you would call an Indian person a Siwash.
Jeez.
And so Siwash Rock, at the time, it was just basically, it meant Indian rock. But that's the etymology of that word, is that it comes from French word sauvage. It originally meant savage. That's what the French word means.
Wow, that's horribly offensive.
Yeah, and nobody knows that.
Yeah.
So in our languages, though, in the languages of this area, the word in our languages are the same. Same word, basically, just a slight different pronunciation. It's a different accent or different, it's like a difference between calling something in Italian versus calling something in Spanish. They're really close. Two slightly different languages, but the same word, more or less. So in Squamish, we call it Schaelsh, and in Hunkaminam, it's called Schilich. And the word in both languages just refers to someone or something that is standing. And so the story goes that there was a man who decided to disobey what we call the Chais, or the Transformers. There were these four brothers that in our history traveled through our territory, transforming human animals and things into different human animals and things for the purposes of setting things right in the world. And so when the Chais came through this part of the territory, they had met this man, and the man was going through spiritual training by bathing in the ocean and trying to purify himself, as we do in our customs. And he was doing this because he was training to become a father.
Right.
His wife was expecting a child, and he wanted to strengthen his mind and his heart for this responsibility that was coming. And so he was committing himself to this spiritual training. And the Khais came, and they asked him to move out of the way.
Right.
And he refused to, because he said, I committed myself to this training. I'm committing myself to my future child. I will not, I will not move.
Right.
And so the Khais, seeing his determination to be a good man and to be a good father for his family, decided to transform him into that rock as a monument and as a lesson for all the future generations about how to be in the world. That people should look to him as an example of his unselfishness to take care of his family and to be a good person. His two wives were also transformed into a rock. One was transformed, and the rock is a little bit further around, and the other one's closer to one of closer to a landscape ridge.
Right. What happened to the kids?
The mother never gave birth to the child, but the child and the mother were transformed into one of the rocks as well.
Huh. So if you were growing up many years ago, or maybe even people still today,
Yeah.
like, and you see that rock, basically it's a reminder or a teaching to be steadfast, basically.
Yeah, to be committed. They say that the Khais were a representation of spirit. They were, for some people, they represented the Creator itself. That it was the Creator who had sent the Khais here, and that they had the power of the Creator when they came here. And so there's an interesting lesson in that our ancestors, although they respected the power of the Creator and the gift of creation, they also didn't see Creator as all being everything that that required their absolute devotion.
Not
or
a guy with a beard on a hill.
Yeah, and so there was a thing where disobeying the Khais wasn't something that was, it was permissible. It was something that was within the realm of possibility.
Right.
To defy that type of.
So it wasn't a punishment.
No, and there's something interesting about that. There's no this kind of idea of no false idols.
Right.
And that our people were willing to still recognize that they are human beings and that they can do things in this world, not because some spiritual lesson told them that they have to do it that way.
Right.
And that they were still willing to question those things and still willing to determine for themselves what the future was going to be. I think there's something powerful in that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just kind of shocked by the contrast between a story about, somebody being so dedicated to being a good father and cleansing themselves, and then we go and put the word savage on it. I mean, I can't think of more of a contrast between savagery.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing because there's just so much ways in which the attempt to respect our people and our history is often not done in the accurate way. Right.
Well, just even taking the time to even begin to understand.
Yeah, and I think that's why, even like learning some of the place names in this territory as our communities have become more willing to share the information. Learning these place names for the territory really becomes an entry point to all of that.
Right.
But actually learning the names of these places as they've been called for hundreds of thousands of years,